This is Jonathan St. James, and you're listening to The Truth is Still Straight podcast. All right, folks, we're back at it again. It's Jonathan St. James, along with The Truth is Still Straight. And pictured in with me, if you're watching on YouTube, is Jim. What up, Jim? I missed your voice there. What did you say?
I say, everyone, how you doing?
All right, let's get into it real fast because I'm not trying to play any games today. This definitely is a video request that I am fulfilling for a friend of mine. So we're just going to get into it and try to get this topic going on and popping and all that. All right. So here's the thing, folks. All right. Recently, a friend of mine asked me a series of questions. So I'm going to do the best that I can to answer the questions. Go over the comments, ignore the background noise. Unfortunately, police feel like they need to make noise all the time, but have nothing to do with that. All right. So the topic is going to be modern women and non-traditional relationship tactics. Now, what does that mean? So, of course, we all know that in this day and age, there's a back and forth of what relationships will look like, performing and stuff like that. But more seriously than what they should look like is actually what people do for relationships. So that is the discussion that I want to get into. And one of the questions I was asked from a friend of mine who said, please talk about this. So here I am talking about it. So the first question was, how do you know if a man loves you? Now, that's a very difficult question to answer. And there's no real objective way to say that, because unfortunately, love is a subjective thing in terms of romance. So we know, for those of people who read the Bible and believe in those things, we know what love means there, that agape love. But when you talk about love in terms of feelings, relationships, romance, that is subjective based on person to person. So person A may believe that love is flowers, candy, going on dates, saying compliments and flattery and kissing and hugging and public displays of affection and things like that. The next person may think that love is you buy things for them and you take them to their friends, to events and things like that. So good sex, they can get marriage, posting on your social media that you're with that person. So there's a variation of things that go on. And coming into the show and I'm glad that LaDonna Marie's here, because it's definitely an urgent discussion that we're having today. So I'll pause in the action. Hey, LaDonna Marie, how are you?
Hi.
So to just get you up to speed as we begin to talk, the topic for today is modern women and non-traditional relationship tactics. And what I was explaining is that a friend of mine who seriously needed some advice asked me a series of questions. And I started off, she asked me, how do you know a man loves you? So in my discussion with her, she asked if I would bring this up in the podcast. So this is what I'm doing today. And so I explained to her, I said the difficulty in explaining how a man loves you is not easy, because we know that there's different variations of what people consider love. And we know what God tells us love is, but we also know there's a human version of love that's imperfect, excuse me, I can't even think. Imperfect and subjective, depending on the person, background, culture, ideology, and stuff like that. So I tried to not really go into the love thing with her, because I didn't want to try to explain for an individual what that would look like, because I don't know the person that she's speaking of. So I didn't want to get into that discussion. But what I told her is there's just some things that, love that you may be looking for, but you have to look for the basic things in a person. So one of the things that I told her is respect and understanding. So a second question that she asked, so she said something like this. So she met him recently. So to make a long story short, she met him recently, and he's sort of full speeding ahead, wants a relationship, wants to get married, and this and that. So she asked me what I thought about that. So I told her, I said, I'm gonna be honest to you. So I said, I'm always nervous when people are in a hurry to do things that they should take their time to do. So if somebody just meets you in a couple of weeks, they're trying to get married, that's a big worry to me. That's a red flag when someone is so animate at doing something so quickly where they barely know you, but they want something that's so permanent. I mean, nowadays people get divorced in 5 minutes, but that's still a serious thing when you get married to someone. Even if you get divorced to them relatively fast, it's still a difficult process that we go through. So to make a long story short, I guess that's where we'll start off with here. So I mean, based on what I just told you in terms of what her thought process was in terms of marriage and things like that, as a lady, of course, what is your thought on the fact that he just met her a few weeks ago and wanted to get married within a couple of weeks? And I don't know how many dates they went on, but very little. I think second or third date or something like that just happened this weekend.
Okay, so wow, two different things, two different answers I have here, because I know that I've been one of the ones who have kind of ascribed to the suddenly type marriage, suddenly dating, but that's because I'm more on the path of knowing like what I want, what I'm looking for, you know what I'm saying, looking at characteristics and getting to know people. But I would say it's a little soon. You know what I'm saying? Even though you can know that you may want to marry someone, I think you still should go through the motions of getting to know someone. I mean, it's great to be like, okay, I first meet you and I want to marry you, but do you really know the person? Do you really know, you know what I'm saying, what they bring to a relationship? What are you bringing to a relationship? Because when you want to get married, it's not just the wedding, it's the day-to-day things that are, the wedding is just one day, but it's the day-to-day things that you're going to have to cope with. So you're going to have to get to know the person. You're going to have to know their background. You're going to have to get to know, you know what I'm saying, just different things about them and virtues of their character, because a lot of people can say certain things, but when you get in a moment, they may not know how to, you know what I'm saying, how to have a, you know what I'm saying, a healthy, I don't know, we'll just agree to disagree. And so I think that it's a little soon, because if you don't even know what you're looking for in another person, then I don't think that you should be getting in a relationship as of right now, because I don't want you to settle for something that you did not expect. Not to say that when you do get in a relationship, even if you're healed, even if you know what you want, you're still going to have to deal with, you know, things that arise. So I mean, it's kind of like I'm on both sides, but I do think that you still need to take time with a person. It can be, like I said, it can be fine to say that they want to get married, but they still need to take a purpose, or like a time between 3 to 5 months at least, to get to know each other, like to go through different circumstances and situations and have conversations and learn more about the person, or even just do some observations. And then if knowing exactly what you want. So I just think that it's a little fast. And just take a little time to get to know someone, because you really don't want to put the cart before the horse. You want to wait so that you can, you know, understand like who the person is. You can get to know who the person is.
So you don't find that a little bizarre that someone would ask someone that they didn't know to marry them?
Somebody that they didn't know?
They didn't know. He doesn't know her. He just met her like a couple of weeks ago. They've only talked a few times. They're going out on their, I think, second date or something like that. You wouldn't be a little, for you, if you met a guy now at, I don't know, the supermarket, and the guy was like, "Hey, how you doing?" And then he got your phone number, and then he started talking to you and told you he wanted to marry you after just meeting you. You wouldn't feel a little way about that?
Yeah, I would not. No. Yeah, I mean, I would feel some type of way. I wouldn't. It wouldn't happen that fast for me. I would think that it's a little soon and a little premature. Like, I would think it would be too soon. So
Right.
yeah.
Because I met Halle Berry
Yeah.
and she didn't ask me to marry her the first day I met her. So I'm just going by that.
Can I
All
just
right.
say, Jim, I like your haircut. I like what you got.
Oh,
going
yeah,
on.
definitely. Oh, definitely. Did you join the Marines this weekend or something?
No, well, it's growing back already. It was short.
Yeah. I totally didn't notice that. I noticed the wrestling belt in the background before I noticed your haircut. Shame on me. Maybe because I don't have any hair. That's probably why I'm just hating,
Don't hate. Don't hate.
I got an eagle's nest on top of my head.
It's okay. Somebody's
Right.
gonna love that eagle's nest.
But check this out. So, I mean, I saw someone, they had a whole thing done. They went out of the country, had no hair up here, again came, had a whole, I don't know what it was. He had like some stubble up here. And because before he just had like some strands of hair on top of the head. It's clean. Came back, hair looking beautiful, like a nice little stubble on top of his head, had a nice beard over here that he didn't have before he went. So I gotta ask him what he did because it looked pretty good.
It's Velcro.
Yeah. So his beard, we know that my friend Mike was like, "Oh, that's not real, right?" And he was like, "Nah." I gotta find out what he did because it looked pretty good, and he looked a lot younger, so it helped him. So maybe I'll come back. And maybe I'll get like a Sharpie and just kind of put some dots on my head.
No Sharpie. No.
Or what? Who was it? Diddy, I think, and who Diddy? I can't remember who. And they used to do like the paint in their hair. Do you remember when that was a thing? When people would put paint, like they would paint or polish put on top of their head. Like that was a thing for a minute. I wonder what happened to that. I was gonna get into that, but the fad left by the time. Anyway,
I was like, people still, that's not like a blackout. People still do that. I see
I've seen it too.
I see men go to the barbershop. I've seen them get the little blackout with their hair. They're trying to cover up some grays.
no, but
like
it looked fake. No. It looked like somebody put a
fake.
magic marker on that. And remember, there was like a spray that they used to spray on their hair. There was a whole infomercial about it. I wish I could find it, where they would spray on top of their hair.
Oh,
and
how
then,
did we get here?
Yeah. We'll find it sooner or later. All right, Jim, enough of that digressing. But yeah, so you heard what we both said so far. What is your take on this? And I'm just giving you, so this is gonna be like a different stages, because I'm gonna add some logs to the file so you can understand the proper context of this discussion after you talk.
So it's an old saying I said before on this show: "Fools rush in." I don't know the context. I don't know the motive behind it, but it's not a movie. Love at first sight or whatever rarely happens. And if it does happen, it's usually at a younger age and they grow along with it. From my experience with this, I don't know what the motive is. It's highly suspicious, dubious. It could be insincere at best. You don't know his family. You don't know anything about him. Do you know where he works? Do you know where he lives? Do you know anything? Like,
she does know where he works. That's how she met him, on his job.
Oh, okay. Where he works. Where he lives. Is he stable? Is he, appearances, could be, you'll be showing a facade and behind the scenes there's something else going on that you may not know. And then, you make a commitment like that and, he could have extremely bad credit, look at what somebody shared his credit load. It's so many like wild possibilities that could just make this go south in a hurry. Like as soon as the marriage certificate is signed, it's like it goes south in a hurry. I don't know what the rush is. She should take her time. This is a big step for a person in life to actually get married. It shows commitment, discipline. It shows a maturity. And for this guy to just say, I want to marry you, and is the person contemplating it, or she's just like?
So here's the thing. Definitely, there's a serious contemplation where it could actually happen. But here's where I was suspicious, because here's the next part of this story. He has no citizenship.
Ding, 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 ding. Okay, now bulb goes off.
Now, and I'm in a hurry to the fact that this guy has no papers. No, he's not an illegal alien. I mean, he's not a legal alien, because if he was a legal alien, aka a resident, he wouldn't have to worry about papers. So apparently she didn't know in the beginning, and she started talking to the mother, and the mother exposed him, saying that he didn't have any papers, and if she was going to tell him if he didn't, and somehow that was revealed. And that was something that I was definitely told her that was suspicious to me. And when I spoke to her, I said, listen, that's a problem in itself, because that is usually the motivation for people to get married. That's something that my mother did. My mother married a guy that didn't have papers, from Dominican Republic. And the weird thing was, the guy was beautiful, a beautiful human being. You remember Carlos, right, Jim?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
A wonderful guy, right? Well, yeah. He was really short. I think he was like 4'11". My mother's like 5'2". Yeah. And he was like 5 feet tall, or something very small. A lot of times they thought he was a kid because he was so little. But anyway, they got married. He got those papers, and the first thing he did was bring his family, his kids. He had 2 kids, and then he made life miserable for her, because he wanted to get out the marriage at that point, because it wasn't necessary for him anymore. But he went through all the hoops. I remember my mother was my mother was always into church, always, as long as I can remember. So she was going to this one Spanish church in Harlem on 133rd Street. There was some church over there between 12th Avenue and Marginal Street, which is, I know for those of you who are from New York City, on the total west side of the after Marginal is a little greenery, and then the Hudson River, and then Jersey on the other side. So she lived there in a church apartment, and then, they stayed there for a while, and he got the citizenship. The next thing, the kids were there, and then they moved to Clifton, New Jersey with my grandmother. And then it went downhill from there, because he started mistreating her, and he was just trying to force her hand to divorce him. So they ultimately got a divorce, and the mother of his kids, he ended up bringing her here too, and got married to her. So, yeah. So this is a very dangerous game that people play when it comes to getting papers, because you have a lot of people who want to stay in this country, and they're willing to do whatever. More times than not, these these citizenship marriages don't tend to work out, even if one person is looking for a relationship and the other person is appearing. And that happened to another friend of mine. But the problem with her was, she was Chinese American, and he was from Italy. And not to knock anyone, but she wasn't on the attractive side. She was she had bad problems with dandruff, and excessively overweight. She was maybe 5 feet tall and maybe 300 pounds. So this guy was a young kid, a Romeo type of guy. And the long story short, she couldn't provide the proof that she could keep him here. So they rejected his, and then he disappeared, and we never heard from him again once he couldn't get those papers. But he was, messing with women here when when they were married. And that was a sad thing. So a lot of times you have these guys, or, you know, sometimes women too, they prey on people who are a little vulnerable or a lot vulnerable, depending on circumstances. And one of the things she did say was you know, people were getting married around her. I think she said a relative of hers got married, and it got her thinking about herself. And she wanted to be with somebody and things like that. So that's the second part of the context. Yeah, I didn't mean to go on, but that's the second part of the context, because there's even more. And what they say, and more, and so on and so on. So that's the second part. So I want to get into the discussion about that. So does that, now, if you're in that situation, LaDonna Marie, does that make you feel a little bit more suspicious if you're the person?
If I'm the person that someone wants me to marry them so they can have papers to stay over here, oh yeah, I'm suspicious. No, yeah, I kind of figured that was probably, you know what I'm saying, like what it was. I was thinking that, but yeah. So yeah, I wouldn't do that, because like you said, people can be manipulative, just to get what they want. And so, and then like if things don't happen the way that they want them to happen, you know, in the scenario that you share, but yeah, I would be, you know, I would just say no. I mean, yes, and wondering, you know, my answer. I got my answer because you want something. That's why you want to be here, and that's why you want to marry me.
Right, because I'm guessing he has to do it right away before he gets caught, and then that he has to go back, because that's really what it is. Is it a situation where, you know, they catch up with you and then you get sent back? But if he's here and he gets married, then he can start the process of being able to stay here. And from my understanding, because it's funny that we're having this discussion, because I've actually been doing a lot of research, talking to people from other countries and interviewing them for this actual topic. And from what I understand is the way that it works is, if you're from another country, what he would probably do is go back to the country, and then she could petition for him to stay here with her as a guest. So he would go back to his country. He's from Dominican Republic. He would go back there. Then she would contact the consulate, and then she can petition for him to stay. And then they would start the paperwork, because you can, you know, as long as you're vouching for the person, that you can pretty much keep them here as long as you want. And then you would just process the paperwork. He may have to, if I remember correctly, every once in a while, I think you have to report back to your home country. I don't know if the laws have changed since from previous times where I've had this discussion with people. But once you, because we can technically ask for anybody. If we were friends with people, we could say, oh, we want to invite someone to stay in the country, and then we'd have to contact the consulate and petition for them to come into the country. But so I would suppose that's what would happen, because he would have to make it legal. And if he's here illegally, he couldn't do it from here. He would have to go back to the country, and I know a lot of people doing it right now. I mean, I don't suggest people to do it when people are just looking for papers, but there's just a lot of lonely people out there that are just looking for a relationship. And a lot of these citizenship seekers, they tend to be very, very convincing in terms of laying the syrup on thick and convincing somebody that they love them, they really want to be with them. Then they get those papers, and it usually doesn't end well. I've rarely seen a case where I could say that the person came here, they got the citizenship, and it worked out. Most of the cases that I know, they didn't work out. And terrible things have happened. A lot of times with the women, especially when the women were taking care of the men here, and they didn't go well. A lot of times they want to bring someone over here, and it just doesn't end well. All right, Jim. So I know you know a lot about this.
Definitely.
Papers stuff going on. So what is your take on that?
Well, this whole rush into marriage thing, he has to be careful. The interview process with the immigration is very strict, especially to these type of marriages. If you get one question wrong on the interview process, they'll send you back. You know, you have to make sure that you know the person that you married. They're not playing this. Immigration's not playing this game with them anymore. They're not playing this game with these guys. You could have gone away with it 20 years ago. Now this is not a game. You mess up on the questionnaire, You mess up on anything that immigration asks you, you got to restart the process over again. That happened to Gigi's mother when she brought somebody over for drinking. He messed up on one answer to a question that they asked. I think like, what's her address or what's her phone number or something like that. He messed up. They sent him back, got to resubmit the process. This is not a game. Okay, this is what these marriage guys think. It's not a game anymore. After 9/11, it's not a game. Secondly, listen, I know I'm going to be wrong for saying this, but I got to say this. At this point, you're not looking for a marriage. You're looking for a transaction. Okay, this is not a marriage anymore. This is a transaction. You're getting paperwork for whatever you're providing. So, in all honesty, like for me, it's like, you could slide some money, something else this way, not to be funny or anything, but you have to protect yourselves in these things. A marriage in the US is a lot different than a marriage in other places. And, I don't think the people who come here has a full understanding of what marriage is over here. So to me, like I said, it may seem wrong. It may seem like a little bit, selfish, but personally, you have to protect yourself in some way or form. Even if you're thinking about doing it, just even entertaining the thought, not even doing it, entertaining it, the thought, you have to protect yourself. You don't want to get caught up, especially with immigration. You don't want to get caught up with all that stuff. Thirdly, like what you said, be careful of, the family, like you said, most of the people I've known that came over to this relationship have children already. So the main priority is not going to be you, it's getting their children over here. So, are you prepared to like have another set of kids come in? Are you prepared to have kids with this person and then have their children come over? It happened to a friend of mine. He got married to a woman with 3 kids who needed citizenship. She wasn't very forthcoming. He found this out later. Wasn't forthcoming. She got married, so gave him the citizenship, and they got 2 boys along the way. And now the marriage is like, he's very neglectful. So certain things that she was getting away with, stuff like that, he's now catching hip to it because he's not really getting anything. The wife is getting all the stuff, she gets all the money from the taxes. She claims all the kids. She gets all the money from the stimulus checks, and she, nothing's being shared. So it's I say it's hard, and I'm saying, I'm not trying to be funny or anything, but you have to protect yourself some way or another if you're even entertaining of doing this. It's a risk for you. You're taking most of the risk, and you have to be very, when you get to these type of things, you have to make a very conscientious decision, and you have to be straight and upfront with the person that's requesting it, because they're coming out to you. It's hard to, like we said, it's hard if you're lonely, or if you want to be with someone or something, or if you like the person. But at the same token, you are bearing the brunt of the risk of all this.
So it's it's an interesting situation because that to think that the thought process could be that you can't find someone. And I don't know why so many women don't realize it's not that hard for you to, the right person is one thing. To find someone, not that hard. It's really about engaging. It's about, if you're really interested in someone, making yourself available and not rushing, because I think that's a historical issue for her, is that she can meet someone and then like the person and want to be in an instant relationship with them right away. And I explained to her, I said, when you meet someone, even if they like you and you think you got to respect someone's boundaries. So if you meet a man and the man is interested in you, but needs to see if you can coexist in a relationship, you got to wait. The same thing if you met a man and you wanted him to do the same thing. You meet someone and you say, hey, how you doing? And he's like, I like you. The answer to, I want to be in a relationship is like, okay, you don't know the person. Just because you're around people all the time doesn't mean you know them. You don't know what they're capable of doing. You don't know if they're a killer, murderer, or rapist, or you don't know what these people got going on. So the thing with her is she operates as if tomorrow she's gone. Like, okay, if you don't do this by tomorrow, and I told her that's a very unhealthy ideology, because the problem with that is then you find out that you shouldn't been in the situation that you didn't want to be in because you didn't pay attention to it in the first place. So that's a real situation with her that I'm not sure if she doesn't believe she's worthy of. I know she wants to be happy, but a lot of times people want to be happy, but they don't actually function as if they deserve it. And what does that mean? Is that means you don't compromise yourself because you're lonely. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've been lonely in my life myself, but I'm not just going to get involved with anybody because I want to be with somebody. You just got to be patient. When you know, people want college degrees. You don't wake up and say, I want a degree, and then you get it the next day. You got to get those credits, got to do those, you got to go to class, or you got to do reports or whatever it is. You got to meet the requirements that are appropriate to get a college degree, and a relationship shouldn't be any less than a college degree, because the difference with a college degree is if you fell out of college, that's just school. But you get into a relationship, that's your life, and you only have one of those. You can always go back to school and take additional classes, re-register, whatever. But once you're giving your life to someone, you're putting your safety, your livelihood in someone else's hands. You don't know what this person is capable of doing that you're fast forwarding a relationship with. So that was the second part of this situation. Now, here's the part that I really advised against it, because she said something that I found was very disturbing. And the next part of that was, so she has a child and she feels a little uncomfortable because of current conditions of, you know, people abusing kids, whether sexually, physically, things like that, emotionally. So she was a little apprehensive about having her child live with them. So she said she spoke to him about this. And so my response to her was, what did he say? What do you think he said? Anybody?
It's okay. You go ahead.
He didn't even say that. He said absolutely nothing. It was as if she didn't say it at all. So I told her, I said, here's the real problem. And I did tell her this. I said, you're going to do what you want to do, and I understand that, but I can't comfortably sit here and let you tell me that and not tell you the problem that I have with what was spoken there, or not spoken rather. Because I said, when you talk to someone, there should always be a level of understanding. You have to understand when this conversation is over between you and him, he has to understand where you're coming from. So if you told him something that was important to you and he didn't care enough to clarify your decisions and come to an understanding on what you would be doing, that he just, like it was a cloud passing in the sky, that's a serious problem. Because if your child is one of the most important things to your life, and you're talking about sacrificing your livelihood in terms of raising your child, and the guy has no reaction to it, not to ask, not to understand, not to get oh, well, how long is this going to be? Is this going to be a permanent thing? Is this going to be until we establish a trust or whatever? Nothing at all. So the guy wants to marry you by yesterday, but he doesn't care about your child to say, okay, that makes sense. I understand. Hopefully that'll change down the road, but then says he wants to give you kids. So that was a big flag to me. And I'll be honest, because as a guy, I'm looking at it from my perspective. If I meet a woman and the woman tells me something about her kids, I'm going to engage in the discussion, because the children are, to me, more important than me, because they didn't ask to be here. The parents put these kids here. Her child didn't ask to be born. You had the child. You brought this child on the earth, on the face of the earth. You have this child living. So when I meet someone that has a child, I have to understand, until that child can take care of themselves, there has to be an urgency of the well-being for these kids that women have, or myself, or any person. That was very troubling to me. And I told her that. And unfortunately, I'm going to be honest, she didn't, she's proceeding currently, but I guess she wants to understand. But I'm here trying to, let her see perspectives other than mine so she could get an understanding of choices that she may make moving forward. So now, with that third thing, what is am I wrong to be alarmed by a lack of interest in her decision-making in terms of this relationship that she's looking to establish with somebody that she may get married to shortly, and put her child literally living somewhere else, not with her, where her child lives every day with her now, but they get married, this child would not live with her. Never, until who knows when.
No, you're not wrong. I just couldn't even imagine that. And I have 2 children of my own. And imagine my children being away from me because of a guy. No. No. I just couldn't fathom that. And even I understand that you want a relationship, but it shouldn't even be like a choice for him about if her child can still live in her home. Because why would you want to date someone who has no comment about your child, but would want to bring their children? Because any person this is me speaking about me, any person that I get into a relationship with, they're going to have to respect my children. If you don't respect my children, I don't think that we can have a relationship, because there will never be a situation where you mistreat my children. Disciplining them and making sure that they do the right thing, yes, because they're going to be obedient. But mistreating them because they're my children, they're not your children, like, that's a no from the get-go. The communication is already, it's already like a misunderstanding. Because I would say anybody that you should want to be in a relationship with have to respect the fact that you come as a package deal. And of course you're going to have little bumps and things that you have to overcome, but you come in as a package deal. And so just with that silence, it spoke loudly to me, like, as a mother of 2 children, of 2 boys. I wouldn't want to put a man, in front of my children just for the sake of like not having them in the home. There's a whole nother, law when it's a husband, not a man, but a husband being the head of the household. But in this situation, just the communication, I don't think that you were wrong. I think that you gave her a good, like a good conversation and something to think about, because I just would say woman to woman, don't rush into anything, with someone who does not respect or have anything, no comment about your children, because they're in your life. And like you said, they didn't ask to be here. And so it's a package deal. And I don't think that that's a good way to start anything. If you're having to choose between him or them, or him or, or the child, I don't think that's a good way to start. Jim.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's vital that when you get into a relationship, nothing's going to be perfect, but you have to build on a solid, strong foundation. Can't be rushing into things, because the consequences of rushing can be catastrophic. And you don't want to be put in a situation now. And I'm going to be honest to you. It's happened to someone that I know just recently. And the person that it happened to, she ended up having to escape domestic violence in the worst way, where she was fearful for her life. So that was almost the exact same situation. She met somebody, rushed into a marriage with the person. She had a daughter. I don't think the daughter didn't, in this case, the daughter stayed with them But the guy was violent. She had to report the domestic violence, had to go to court, was killing herself to get this divorce, had to hire a lawyer, had to jump through all the hoops to figure out if she gonna do this, not get any spousal support if she does that. So I think ultimately what happened, she ended up getting the marriage annulled, but it wasn't without some hell that she had to go through to get the annulment. Basically, she had to twist the guy's arm legally for him to agree to the annulment because there was some financial things. And so she actually came to me with that. And I said, here's the thing. This was my advice to her, not that it has to do with this specific topic, but to let you know how serious it was, because she asked me my opinion in this matter. And she said, well, what should I do? And I told her, I said, here's the thing. I said, you got to figure out what's the most important thing to you. You want to get money from this guy or you want to get away from him? So if you're getting money from him, that means you're going to have to continue to deal with him. You're going to have to continue on interacting with the guy. So you don't have kids with him. So he doesn't need to take care of you or what were you doing before you married him? Were you able to take care of yourself? Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So continue to take care of yourself. That was my advice to her, because I said your relationship with him was extremely unhealthy. And if you had to resort to all of these things to get him out of your life, why would you want to continue to keep him in your life? The perfect example I can use to this matter is Tina Turner. When she got a divorce from her husband, she basically was like, you could have everything. All I want is my name. And that's what she left with. And she, as far as I can tell, she ended up pretty good after that. So you got to think of the long-term effects in the decisions that you make. Sometimes they feel tough and difficult, but sometimes they're necessary. Sometimes you got to go through a little darkness to have a lot of light. And you may struggle in the beginning, but struggle doesn't have to be forever. That's how long you allow it to be. You can take measures to improve your situation. There's a lot of things people can do to help themselves. And she's not one that's above that. So I know that she has the ability to take care of herself because I've known her many years. I've known her about 8 years now, maybe a little bit more than 8 years, but 9 years I've known her. So I know what she's capable of doing. So she'll be all right. She ultimately took the advice. That's a rarity, because it's very rare people take sound advice in this day and age. Most of the time they just ignore you and do whatever. But she did take the advice. She didn't do the right thing after that, but that's a whole different episode. We'll talk about that one in another podcast episode. But she did listen and she got the annulment, and now she's rid of the guy. And to make a long story short, she met the next guy and had a kid from him. But that's a whole different topic. All right, Jim. So you heard what LaDon Marie said and what I said. What is your point to the topic?
His indifference towards if the kid is there or not is very alarming. He's just using it. He didn't want to say anything because he did not want to say something that might make her change her mind. And the insincerity shown that he wants to get something. He's so desperate to get something out of her. He would just go along or say anything just to keep her on her good side. So they'll play that role until everything goes through, and then they'll switch up on them afterwards. The thing is that you said the other man had kids. So if he petitioned them and they come,
no, he doesn't. I don't know if he has kids. What I was saying, he wants to give her kids. She doesn't want kids. He wants to give her kids. So how that usually ends up. If she's not on birth control, she's having kids. How that happens.
Yes, that clash is doesn't work very well. It's so many negatives there already off the bat. I don't even know why it's like real being entertained. The child can't be there. She don't have any more kids. But then if there's no child there, he's gonna say he wants kids. He wants kids, and it's you already have a clash of ideologies already.
I agree.
He's not going to be forthful. He's not going to be truthful or forthcoming because he wants something. So he doesn't want to rock the boat. He doesn't want to say how he feels. So he's gonna, lie and play a role. And oh yeah, babe, we're good. It's fine until he gets what he wants. And that type of insincerity is gonna read her down. It's gonna make her child resent her. It's gonna get her into trouble with him, and and she's gonna fall into a trap where like what you said, if he has kids, if she have a kid and she didn't want it, that might cause some resentment towards the child, stuff like that, and it's very volatile. Now that you're just saying all this stuff, it's becoming too volatile. Like what she got to do, what Tina Turner said, and she might just have to take a step back. She's not ready for this shift change. She's not. This is a whole big adjustment. Her child's been there all the whole entire time. She's gonna get rid of, trip the child aside just to keep this guy only known for like what, 2 weeks, he said?
Yeah, about 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah.
2 or 3 weeks? Come on, man. Oh God. No. The child is very important to her, has to be important to her. Unfortunately, and I'm saying unfortunately, the child has to be the priority, to focus on. I know times are tough and, it's maybe hard or difficult, but there's a lot of better men that she could be situated with that she can feel comfortable, could take time, don't pressure her, or don't do these type of decisions under pressure, because most of the time when you do that, you make the wrong decision. And I don't know how you entertain this. I can't fathom how you entertain this. Like really, like I can't fathom.
I agree.
Can't entertain this.
Yeah, certainly.
These are non-starters. It's a wrap after this.
And this is where culture comes into things too. And unfortunately, the pressure is on for her to find someone and get married. A lot of cultures, she's, pressured to get a man. She's about in her 30s, I think. And
you said the right phrase. Get a man.
Mm-hmm.
A man.
Get a man. Yeah. Get a man. Man.
Right. That's not the phrase that should be
used. Right. And unfortunately, and this goes back to what we say, know your dysfunction and understand who you are as a person, and why are you willing to jump so fast into something that could be unhealthy for you. Yeah. That's like meeting a guy in the street and you're like, I'm just going to have sex with this guy and not care about if he has HIV, herpes, any type of STD infections. And you just lay down with him unprotected and do whatever. That's the same kind of situation. You're giving your life to someone that can cause misery for you, a long-term misery. And it's not worth it. If I was in that situation, I'd just rather be alone, to tell you the truth. I mean, listen, Kevin Samuel said, what does he say? Buy a dog, die alone. Yeah. I mean, I'd rather do that than jump into a relationship. I'm just saying, because the worst thing is having to get out of it. This is not like a boyfriend where you're like, I'm done, get out, bye. This is, I'm your husband. I'm entitled to this. I'm entitled to that. I'm entitled to a certain lifestyle that has been provided for me. So I'm going to go on my terms. But I thought about this, and I think this will be the last piece of the conversation before we finish this episode. But I thought about this way. What if this is a ruse for him to use as an excuse when it's time to divorce? Because he can tell her, I want kids. She says, I don't want kids. And he can say, well, I want to have a family and you refuse to give it to me. And that could be terms for irreconcilable differences right there. Refusing to have a family with somebody that for all intents and purposes, you get married to have a family to. And that could be something that he could use to his advantage to her.
Right.
Not necessarily where it would have any water legally, because she did establish from the beginning she didn't want to have kids, but he could use that as a rule to divorce her and say, I want to divorce because I want to have kids and you don't. And I thought maybe you would change after some time, but you didn't change. And I just, I want to leave kids behind in this world. So I don't put anything past anyone. I've seen, Jim, you remember some years ago how that woman, she was putting health insurance on, I mean, not health insurance, on life insurance on homeless people, and she was killing them for the life insurance.
Yes.
I don't put anything past anyone. People are capable of doing unsightly things in this world. When I say a woman went in the street, found homeless people, put pretty good life insurance, stop with the health insurance, life insurance on these people's lives, and then kill them to collect the life insurance. And that's a real story. That's not a Law and Order or anything like that. That's an actual, really happened in New York City. This woman did that. So people do those kinds of things all the time. For a while, one of my mother's husbands, I thought he was trying to kill her because some weird things were happening. The apartment caught on fire and he wasn't there. The dog barking saved her life because she woke up and the apartment was on fire. And miraculously, he was nowhere to be found when this apartment was caught on fire. Then, she was sick all the time and stuff like that. And she told us that one time she went on a vacation with him. He was from Barbados, and he pulled out a gun and gave it to her and told her to blow her brains out. But what are we talking about here? A lonely person that's willing to do whatever to be with someone. That's what we're talking about. And that's a life that some people choose to live so that they are not lonely. I'd rather be lonely. Listen, if I'm lonely, I'll turn on the TV and watch something that'll make me laugh for the night. Tomorrow's another day if I live to see it. And if I got to choose between miserable and lonely, but have peace, I'd rather be lonely and have peace and not have to worry about who's just trying to destroy my life because they want to get their agenda accomplished. So that's the last topic that I wanted to talk about. So hopefully I didn't lose anybody while I did all that talking. So Don Marie, you heard everything I said. What is your closing thoughts to this topic?
My closing thoughts is get to know yourself and what you want. So that you won't settle for anything. You won't settle for what just comes your way. From one person who settled when I was younger. Every time I did, those circumstances did not work for my benefit until I had to learn my own self-worth. And I'm like you, Jonathan, I would rather be alone than to be miserable or to put myself in something just for the sake of saying or being able to say I did it by 35 or I'm the time clock is running out and I'm about to do it. No, those are not good reasons to do it. You have to actually take time to get to know yourself, your worth, know that you're worthy of someone loving you and appreciating you. And like you said earlier, respecting you for who you are, and that you can build a life that is pleasing to you, not just one you settle for because you want the facade of something or you want something to look like, or you're trying to help someone else get something. And even in the beginning, that's a selfish situation because that the other person cares more about what they can get than they do about who you are as a person and what you deserve. And so I just want to leave it here, just telling everyone who's listening, to get to know yourself and to know what your non-negotiables are and what you're going to accept and what you're willing to work through and what you're going to just basically learn how to say no. No is a whole answer, and you can say no any given day of the week or any hour of the day. I'm LaDonna Marie, and I'm finished.
It is time for relationship braces, bringing hearts together, one heart at a time. Jim, this is your part of the show where you send us away, bringing hearts together, one heart at a time. So, what do you have for us, sir?
I totally, agree with you and LaDonna on this topic. It is very sensitive, life-changing, altering the concept of, of what you thought of yourself and what you wanted for yourself. I do agree with Adana on, knowing your tangibles and intangibles, what you accept, what you're willing to accept, things like that. Some things could be negotiated, some things could be compromised, but there are some things that should not be, you can't bend or break on. And, you have to stick by them. And that's the problem. A lot of people don't stick by what they won't bend or break for the sake of, being in a relationship. Another thing is that, the cultural wise, this is when you're come from one culture to another, or from one area to another, the cultures shift and change. You should be able to adapt to some of the ideologies that you are currently in the region that you are now. You can hold on to some of the things that, that your parents grew up on, or you grew up on, but you have to adapt. And I think the lack of adaptability or the pressure not to adapt, but to conform to the culture, past cultures, and what they think is recommended is a peer pressure, sort of peer pressure for them, because they have to live up to a standard, above their parents, their family, their talk and stuff like that. But I will attest to that most family members, go through that same thing you do. It's just that they handle it differently, or they just don't tell anyone. And that's another problem. Other people are not being honest with others about their experiences because they are ashamed as well. So you have to be flexible in your culture and saying that, I'm in America, or, I'm in America now, so this is how things are, this is how the laws are, this is how things are, I should adapt somewhat to say that, I should be able to date this person or get a relationship with this person because their culture 2-to-1 is probably way different than yours. So you have to take those things into account. You have to really sit back and realize, what is it that you want, what is it that you need, and what is it that you are willing to accept from the other person. And once you have like an idea of a framework, then you should be able to move forward. This is not something that you could throw at the wall and see what sticks. And this is what some people do after their first mistake. Mistakes happen, you're probably too young, or, you wasn't ready, or maybe you thought you were, but you have to learn from them. You can't just go back into the same thing because somebody or an ideology says that you should. Everything's a risk. Everything is a way to, how can I put this, not to protect yourself, but to protect your decisions and other people that may be involved. So it's hard. It's hard to fight against logic versus feelings and, what's expected of you. And I can't say that there's a line that, or there's a definite point that both of them don't intersect or they separate, but it's these decisions, you have to realize that if you make the hard choice, you have done the right choice in being alone if it's too much of a headache to be in a relationship with someone, or it's not going to work.
That's a good word there, sir. So I'm just going to say this here. You got to be very mindful of the choices that you're making in relationships, because there'll be a lot of people that come along your way for positive reasons or sometimes for hurtful lessons. And they definitely won't care about what happens to you. So you got to be mindful when you meet people. You got to invest in yourself. That's just like if you had $200 and someone asked you for those $200 and you thought about giving it to them. A lot of times you want to make sure the person you're giving the $200 to has the ability to pay you back. That's first and foremost. But if you've lent the money or if you've lent people money in the past and they screw you, you're going to be a little bit more, what's the word, skeptical about giving away your money. And that's in life, your life is way more important than $1 because you can always get $1 back. You can't get back the time that you spent with someone. So keep that in mind. And before we leave, I'll let President Obama give his message.
Come on, man.
All right. And what else do you have to say, President?
Don't make someone else clean up your mess.
Thank you, President Obama. I appreciate it. All right. With that being said, I just want to say thank you for listening and watching, and we'll talk to you again sometime soon. Take care, all.
Take care, everyone.
Bye, everybody.